the destruction of Edom and through Obadiah's vision in the Old Testament, and you see where they were harboring ill feelings, and as soon as the Israelites fell into calamity, they jumped up and tried to get their revenge. They gloated in the fact that something was happening to them. All over harboring ill feelings for years. And then here we have the same scenario, and Jesus really puts it in perspective. We deal with each other in a far different way than under the old covenant of the old law. Because those relationships were all fleshly relationships. They were all conditional relationships. But we have unconditional relationships here that are predicated on greater things. We now deal with each other by the way God dealt with us. We now deal with one another the way God has dealt with us. So by our actions, we are going to either show God's righteousness or we're going to show our unrighteousness. And that's going to be in what we do. That's going to be in what we say. That's going to be in how we treat one another. Now, this is not to escape someone hurting. It is a difficult spot to be in, to be hurting. And rightfully so, something might have been done to you. Something was done to Esau. He was tricked out of his birthright. And yes, tricked. He was tricked. So yes, something wrong, something bad happened to Esau that didn't deserve to happen to Esau. Despite, you can't judge Esau and say, well, he didn't care about spiritual things anyway. No, the birthright was his. He did not determine he was coming out first. God did. So that was Esau's birthright to begin with, and he was tricked out of it. Yes, something wrong happened to Esau. But what does Esau do with what happened to him that was wrong? What does he do with it? And he has a choice, because you know our God believes in choice. He had a choice to forgive, or he had a choice to keep it and let it destroy him. And not only did it destroy Esau, but it destroyed Esau's generation. Now I ask you, my brothers and sisters, are you going to let your anger destroy you? Are you going to allow Satan to continue to control you by your anger? Are you going to allow for your own selfish motives? As I said before, put it on God's charge. Jesus says, I'll pay it all. And he did. He did. So while you're looking at your brother's faults, you have a mountain of your own that Jesus took care of. And he's simply asking you that because I took care of yours, take care of his. The burden is on me and not on you. And we tend to forget. So we must understand what Jesus is saying here. Because the debt that I'm talking about is the debt of sin. And sins were committed against Esau. Esau did sins to other people, but yes, sin was committed against Esau. And that spread throughout his generation, and eventually it says they'd all be slaughtered. That they would be in ruin, that they would be stubble, that they would be destroyed, that they would be gone, that they would be ashamed, they would be embarrassed. I mean, that text doesn't just kill them real fast. It's a slow death. Because you got to be shamed first. So however it's going to happen, they're going to be shamed. Everything that they acquire, they're going to be able to watch it be taken before they are slaughtered. That's the text. The vision actually goes backwards. It talks about them being slaughtered first and go down, but flip it over and you get the whole scenario. It's ugly. They're going to watch what they've acquired go away. It's going to be taken from them. They're going to be shamed as a result. And the very same thing that happened to them, or that they allowed to happen to Israel, will happen to them. That means that they will see people gloating. You ever seen somebody gloat at somebody else's expense? It's a bad feeling if you're on the tail end of that. Imagine that happening to a whole nation of people. Everybody wanted to keep the anger, wanted to hold it, wanted to be prideful. Destruction is coming. And we need to think about it and be serious today. Because clearly, verse 35 of Matthew 18, if you have understood nothing else that I said, understand that Jesus Christ is telling his disciples that if they do not forgive from the heart, because they've been forgiven from the heart, then all of their sins will be back on their charge. That's what that means. Because remember the story, it's a parable. So the master forgave the unforgiving steward a whole bunch of debt that he would have never paid. But because he wouldn't go out and forgive, it was now required of him when he owed. And I mean, for this first century time, this is like millions of dollars. He'd have never acquired it. Although he begs and pleads, give me time, he can't pay that debt. Nor can we pay ours. No matter how much time, if we lived 1,000 years, we would just store up 1,000 more years of debt. We'd be just as bad. So for the Lord to come and do what he did, to take ours away, and all he's saying is forgive your brother. Forgive your sister. Don't let that anger bottle you up. Let it go. The way I read this, you can't be saved that way. Now, Jesus is talking to his disciples, so these are followers of his, and for us today, because this was written now, of course, after his resurrection, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were written after that. But the point being is the lesson is clear. Those that have been washed in the blood of the Lamb now do things differently than the world does. We live by compassion. Those are our weapons of war. We pay people back with love now. We pay people back with compassion now. We fight with forgiveness now. We're not like the world. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. That's not our covenant. Ours is far greater. Paul told the Corinthian church that our weapons of warfare were not carnal, but they were mighty in breaking down strongholds. We need to use the weapons that he gave us. And we need to forgive today. If you're here today and you are harboring ill feelings toward your brother or your sister, if there is someone in your life who you feel owes you something, I encourage you to rethink that this morning. I want you to think about what God has said in his word and charge yourself to these words. You must let it go. It will only consume you. I gave you 2 examples, but there are tons of others in the Bible of people that held on anger and were looking for vengeance. They never got it. They just got destruction. God still says today, vengeance is mine and I will repay. He doesn't need our help with that. So we want people in restoration mode. We want people reconciled. And this lesson is about reconciliation before we reach the Obadiah vision. Before we get to the state where there is no recompense. There is no forgiveness. Edom never got a gift. That's because there is no gift from God. So if you are in that state today, you need to come forward and ask for forgiveness yourself and release what has been trapping you. Release that out of your spirit. Allow God to deal with whoever or whatever group of people has harmed you. And again, this is not about discounting that you're hurting. It's not about that at all. But it's putting it in perspective so that you can be all you can be for Christ. And not allowing someone else or whatever someone has done to you to consume you. Hate in your heart consumes you too. So if you're here today and that is your desire, I invite you to come forward and we'll pray with you. And we just want Satan to be a liar this morning. Satan wants you just where you are if you're holding that. Let it go today. If you're here and you're not a Christian, you are still, my friends, at war with God. And you need to give it up. Jesus died for the souls of the world. He wants them back. And he purchased them with his blood. And if you, the only way for you to be cleansed is to believe that gospel and to be buried with him by baptism unto death. And like as Christ was raised up from the dead by the glory of the Father, you also will walk in newness of life. That's a promise that we have in eternal life. And that's available to you today, and the water is ready, and we can baptize you if you believe in the death, burial, and the resurrection of Jesus. If we can at all assist you spiritually, please won't you come as we together stand and sing the song of encouragement.